Welcome to a special remote 5-on-5 here with Congressman Greg Walden at the Medford Airport. Congressman, thanks for being here.
It's good to be here.
All right, so thank you. So let's start. One woman reportedly told you that she felt you'd abandoned her for the far right and abandoned the middle way, per se. She urged you to come back to the middle. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, the facts show that I'm 47th in the House for bipartisan work, according to the independent Lugar Center that evaluates that. I think what we need to do is all of us get back to where we're focused on solving problems and fixing the things that Americans realize are broken. And that's what elections were about, was making the decisions on who would go do that. Now we need to get the work done.
6 town halls in the last 3 days. You just wrapped up Medford and Grants Pass. You've heard a lot of what some constituents feel. Where do you go with this information? Does it make you consider revisiting anything?
You know, it's always helpful. You always add to your to-do list, and certainly I added to mine with individual casework, people that have issues they need help on, and we'll be there to do that. And you get a sense of the pulse of people who turned out for the town halls. Obviously, we had record turnouts. I expected that. But a lot of people don't turn out for town halls, and yet they still vote. And they still correspond with us, and they still email with us. So it's another collection point. It's an important one. My job was to listen. I made that clear. I didn't give a long stem winder at the beginning or try and filibuster anything. I was there to hear what they had to say, and obviously they got a lot on their minds.
All right. Even though more than a third of your constituents are covered by Medicaid, the federal health care program for the poor, you helped write the GOP health care plan that would hurt Oregonians under that program. Now you seem to be distancing yourself from that plan in some of these town halls. What changes would you like to see in Medicaid in the future?
I would take issue with distancing from it. I'm trying to explain what it actually does. And frankly, if you're on Medicaid today, you'll be on Medicaid tomorrow and the day after that, including the expansion population. Fully funded at the 90% level that you're funded at today. And I actually fought for that. And in fact, between now and December, the end of December of 2019, Oregon could continue to add people on in the expansion Medicaid and at the 90% federal rate. And you could stay on that as long as you're eligible to be on the program. After which time, the state could still take care of you under Medicaid. They just have to pay a little more to do that. But what we have is a failing independent insurance market for this about 5% of the population that relies on the Obamacare exchanges for their health insurance. That's what we're trying to fix. There's much more work to be done there. And in the meantime, we would put about $320 million into a patient state and stability fund over the next 2 years for Oregon. When Oregon faces an $882 million deficit in Medicaid today before the federal government does anything. So we'd actually be helping Oregon certainly in the next biennium to provide care for people who need it. And I think give the state more options and flexibility. And in the part that we move back to the states for more authority, we would actually allocate as much as Oregon committed to spend, 3.4% rate of growth for their Medicaid. We'd actually have 3.7. And so Oregon will be okay in this process, but they also have a very rich benefit plan. But beyond that, Oregon is 4th from the bottom, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, in the percentage general fund money Oregon pays toward people who need help with Medicaid. We're only ahead of Arkansas, Kentucky, and New Mexico. So somewhere in here, the Oregon government and Salem needs to figure out what's your commitment to Medicaid, because we're 4th from the bottom among states in allocating our general fund state money to help people who need help with their health coverage. Federal government's carrying most of the burden here.
And with all that happening in Salem right now and the big cuts that need to be made seemingly somewhere, something's going to have to happen. The legislature, as you know, is in session. Any recommendations for what you'd like to see them?
You know, that's up to them to make those decisions. Obviously, we're having to borrow money to put into these programs. The country faces half $1 trillion annual deficits, and it's going to grow to $1.4 trillion annual deficit by the end of this 10 years. So how long should we borrow money out of the next generation's pocket to pay for programs today? We've got to come together on this, find solutions that work, and we have to focus on how we bring down costs in the system so we don't have these year-on-year 23, 27% premium increases for people that are on the Obama exchange. So there's a lot of work to be done here. We should do it collaboratively. I heard a lot of suggestions, everything from single-payer health care to Medicare for all, to the fact that the single-payer kind of system, national system we have for veterans, frankly, is broken and not helping our veterans. And so there's a lot of work to do to find solutions throughout the entire range of health care issues that we all face.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll have much more in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to a special remote 5-on-5 here with Congressman Greg Walden. Congressman, you're one of the leaders in a GOP that has control of both houses of Congress as well as the executive branch. How do you get everyone on the same page, be it health care or otherwise, in moving forward with the agenda the party wants?
You know, it's always a challenge because all of us represent different districts. We all came with our own voting cards, and what may work for somebody in Alabama doesn't work for us in Oregon, or vice versa. From Alaska to the Keys, from Maine to Southern California. And so it's a challenge, not only among our own party members, but also among Democrats. We shouldn't look at all these issues as just one party has all the answers. We don't. We need to all work together. We've done that a lot. We do that a lot. When we all get along, it's not as much news as when we're fighting, and that's just the way it is, and we know that. But there's a lot of bipartisan work that gets done too on trying to go after cures for disease. We passed a huge bipartisan bill at the end of last year. President Obama signed into law, included Joe Biden's cancer moonshot, and included the first rewrite of mental health laws in our history since John Kennedy signed that bill, the last one he signed before he was tragically assassinated, and invests in medical research at NIH. So, I mean, there are things we're working on that make a lot of sense in the area of health care. And then on all these other issues, it's tough to govern. There's no doubt about it. And especially when you have filibusters in the Senate that can lock everything up with a minority of the Senate, even when you have a majority for an issue. And so we're going to do our part in the House. We're going to work through it. But, you know, our system wasn't designed to be instant or be perfect. It was designed to have debate. It was designed with some hiccups in there so you don't have a runaway. And I think that's the kind of check and balance that people want, especially in this environment, is the Congress to be an independent branch of the government and take the time to try and figure things out. I heard a lot from the town halls about working in a bipartisan way. I've always tried to embrace that myself. So it needs to be more than just one party involved here.
When it comes to tax reform, which the GOP seems headed to do something regarding that, the president had before the election indicated that he released a plan. Independent tax analysts said that would result in major cuts for the rich and could hurt the deficit. How do you, again, come back to balancing what the party wants to do in doing that, but also balancing the deficit?
Well, we have one of the highest tax rates in the world, which chases jobs overseas and strands money made by American companies overseas because they basically get taxed twice if they bring it back. So it causes them to go, well, why would I stay here? I'll go over there. Then I would get taxed twice. And by the way, they move away. We need to change this to be more competitive internationally so we bring that revenue back here that's already been accumulated and create jobs here and investment here. I think, frankly, we need a much simpler tax structure, especially as here we are around tax day. People have just had to fill it out. If they think it was easy and simple, you know, if you're in business or you've got any kind of return, it's a very complicated process. And so we can simplify this code. We need to make it more fair, and we need to make it my view is, how do we grow jobs in America, good paying jobs, and use the tax code to help do that?
We're still in the first 100 days of the presidency, of course, the new administration. Has there been any discussions regarding Republicans having control of, again, both houses of Congress as well as the executive branch in opening up our forests for timber? I
hope so. I've had some with Lisa Murkowski, who chairs the Senate Committee. Congressman DeFazio, Schrader, and I continue to have our discussions, along with Senator Wyden. I meet with both of our senators, I think, the next 2 weeks to talk about that and other Oregon issues, so we'll see what we can continue to work together on. And we need to reform how we manage our forests. If you look at the work that's been done over the last couple of years in the Ashland watershed, that's resulted from bipartisan legislation I helped author that set up the framework so that we could do that kind of work and prevent catastrophic fire that would destroy a watershed. That's the kind of attitude we need to bring to the rest of our forests so we can reduce the fuel loads, reduce catastrophic fire, create jobs in the woods, and end up not having to spend 4 or 5 times as much to fight a fire that it costs as opposed to doing the work ahead of time. We need to put people back to work in our rural communities. There's a lot of work to be done in our forests. It's a winner all the way around if we can just change the law. So I think you'll see bipartisan work on that going forward. I know the president is supportive of our efforts in general. I've talked to him about it, and he's ready to go, and so is Secretary Zinke with the Interior Department. So I'm optimistic.
Good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Stay with us. We'll be right back.